All right, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. Question came in, interesting, about intention. What intention a person should have doing mitzvahs? All right, interesting question. Question was, what level is higher? Doing the mitzvah for the love of God, for the love of Hashem, or doing the mitzvah because Hashem said so? And you do both at the same time. So, sort of a loaded question here. Well, the answer is, Mishnah Perkei Avos says, as it says in Ethics of Our Fathers, the highest level is the person serves God without ever intention of getting reward. That's the highest level. In other words, it's true. We're commanded to do things. We have an absolute obligation to do things because God said so. That is definitely true. But even if we serve God, not for the sake of reward, right? Totally not for the sake of the reward. Mishnah Perkei Avos says that's the highest level. Right? That is definitely the highest level. The question is, what about love of Hashem? Where does that come in? So, serving God out of fear, there's an obligation. You have to have fear of God. That there's no question. Question is, what level of fear of God? Does fear of God mean that a person's afraid anything they do wrong or potentially do wrong, they're going to find out forever, right? That's the level of fear of God. Lowest level, I mean, it is a level, but it's a low level. The low level of fear of God. What's the highest level of fear of God? Highest level is what we call yira. Yiras is Romamus, meaning God's awesomeness and what he does and how he runs the world. Not just I'm keeping Torah mitzvahs because otherwise I'm afraid I'm going to fry now forever. Now, obviously, there's reward and punishment. So there's no question. The person has to be aware of that. But serving God only for that reason is not enough. Definitely not enough. So the question here, okay, fear of God, let's say a person, is going to serve God because they're afraid. That fear will not necessarily lead to love of God. You need fear. You need a base. No question. But is that fear going to lead to love of God? The answer is no. Love of God and doing what God wants, not because, we're afraid something's going to happen if we do the wrong thing. But we serve him because we believe it's the right thing. And we want to do the right thing. We want to constantly do the right thing. So that's a tremendous thing. Right? That's a huge thing over here. The reality is love of God will lead to fear of God. Because the root of the word love, when we say Hashem to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, with all your money. Love over here, the word the root of the word is ahav, aleph, hey, beis, or hey, beis. Hav means to give in Aramaic. So you want love of God, you have to give. It doesn't come automatic. Something that has to be worked on. Because it's very easy. A person feels, they're trying to do what they can do to the best of their ability, and they want answers. They want things to change. We live in this, instantaneous generation. So I want change. I want God to take me out of whatever I need him to take me out of. It doesn't always work that way. Right? The person has to realize, there's a greater plan. We're not necessarily privy to that. But, God wants to see something also. We mentioned this many times. Something God wants to see is self-sacrifice. Tremendous self-sacrifice. Now, does that mean even with that, God's going to turn over the world, so to speak, and help you? Not necessarily. But if a person shows, look what I did over here, look at the self-sacrifice, you can have a major effect. Right? So, serving God out of love of Hashem to high level. No matter what he throws our way. That's a very high level. Doesn't mean you don't need fear. You need fear. Right? Then the question is, so what's greater? Love of God or doing it because Hashem said so? Now, if a person's doing the mitzvah because God said so, but really what's behind it is they're afraid they're going to find out forever. That's a much lower level. So here we have to keep the mitzvahs 100% because they're divine decree. That's for sure. So that's the base of why we do everything. Even if I understand the mitzvah more, I understand it less, doesn't matter. Right? Doesn't matter. The reality is that we're all obligated to do what God said. So you say that's the olive base. Now, there could be other intentions. Why are you doing it? Because God said so. Again, we'll have to sort of get down to the nitty gritty here. Right? Well, what exactly does that mean? Does it mean a person's doing it because they need this fear and they're afraid, punishment and all that? That definitely is probably part of it. But let's say it's not. Let's say they believe no matter what happens, they're going to do whatever God says. And that's our obligation. That has to be done. That has to be our intention. Now, the question is, what about love of God? If I already have an automatic obligation to serve God because God said so, now, does that negate the fact, love of God? Or can I still have love of God? In other words, do I put one above the other? Are they both the same? All right, so serving God for the sake of, I just want to do what he says. I just love, what he wants me to do. So, I'm not going to say one's more important than the other. Love of God's important. I don't know if I can clarify that, which one's more important. Because there's an automatic obligation to serve God because he said, this is what we have to do. And this is our obligation. Now, we have to love God as well. Now, I would probably say love of God maybe can come in waves. It doesn't always stay the same. What's the reason? Reason is that if I love God and I do what he says, what happens when you have difficulty? So if a person has difficulty, someone told me recently It's easier, much easier to serve God or to have a relationship with God when you're being knocked around. In other words, someone's telling me they've been knocked around so much, had such difficulty, brought them to a higher realization, and they serve God through that. But they said if things are going smooth and things are going easier, doesn't serve God the same way. Seemingly, it's a little bit backwards in a certain way. In other words, person says, I can only serve God when I'm in pain. When I have it hard. So I would say the opposite. People who are in pain, having difficulty, don't want to serve God. They want to go away from what God says. Because he's not helping me. Right? He's making my life a misery. If we understand, that's where it comes from. He's making it hard. Tremendous hardship. So I hear both sides. One side of the coin is, when it's really hard, we pray a lot better. When our back's against the wall, very easy to pray. Because we have no choice. Can't rely on anyone else except for him. So that's true. At the same time, I can hear a person being broken by their life situation. And by saying, well, I'm doing what I can, and I'm doing to the best of my ability, and look what happens. I made commitments. I've changed this, I've changed that. My situation's still the same. Or just the opposite, it's getting worse. A person will be tremendously frustrated. But they're missing something. The assumption is that when I do the right thing, and I'm really striving and this and that, everything should be good. The red carpet should be laid out for me. Money should fall from heaven. Everything should be beautiful. Health, get everything. But obviously we see it doesn't work that way. And we mentioned many times, a person thinks, okay, I'm going to change my life. Totally going to change my life. And everything's going to be different. I don't know anyone who's had it easy. Changing their life, Jews or non-Jews. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Right? So here you need Moshe Feinstein, a blessed memory, Parshas Korach. Moshe Feinstein, one of the Torah giants, the last generation of America. And Moshe Feinstein brings down his commentary on Chumash and Drash Moshe, Parshas Korach. He said, this is what Korach missed the boat on. He didn't, he was jealous. Wanted to be the high priest. But didn't he know? God spoke to Moshe, Moshe gave it over. He didn't do anything on his own. No, but I want to be the high priest. Jealousy killed him. Literally killed him. So, Moshe says, look what Korach went through. Came out of Egypt. Saw the miracles in the desert. Held the ark. And he didn't die. So he's on a high level himself. So what happened? Jealousy. Jealousy killed him. But he said he missed a very fundamental point. And with all the miracles and everything he saw, he didn't internalize the message. He didn't look at everything as a divine decree. So had he looked at everything as a divine decree, he never would have sinned. Says the same thing by us. If we would look at everything as a divine decree, why would we sin in general? Sin much less, if at all. So Moshe says, by Korach, he missed the boat. He missed the message. Which is the second part of this question. Is it a higher level to say because God said so? I don't know if it's a higher level. That's the obligation. That's the hour phase of being an obligation over here. You have to do it because God said it. Right? We have to understand what's behind the mitzvahs, all these things. Fine. But then the Moshe Feinstein, yeah, every mitzvah we do. Why are we doing it? It's a divine command. Now the question is, well, what about love of Hashem? You also need love of Hashem. You also need, am I going to say that's more important? I mean, it's part of it. You know, is it more important? I don't know if it's more important. Doing things because of a divine decree, that's crucial. That 100% is crucial. You can say, how can a person serve God if they don't love him? True. Right? To serve him out of fear. Fear won't necessarily lead to love. You also need love of God. In the long run, that's true. But at the outset, it'd be a good thing to have. I'm not going to say 100%. You're going to need it as much as understanding it's all divine decree. Right? So the question now, if someone asks is respect and fear of God a form of love? So we mentioned fear. It depends what level of fear. If you're telling me the lowest level of fear, the lowest level of fear of God is doing things because I'm afraid I'm going to fry in hell forever. So that is not going to lead to love. But if you tell me fear is understand how God runs the world, God's awesomeness, think about galaxies, shooting stars, nature and how nature works. That's a much higher level of fear. That level of fear, I would say de facto is showing respect. It's showing respect for what God does. Take the human body. Miracles of the human body. Many, many miracles. How the body works. So that is understanding, what God does in the world. So I would say, that's more than respect. I mean, it's an aspect of respect, but it's a much higher level. It's like, that's what you're worshiping over here. You're worshiping the fact that he's in charge of nature. The miracle of nature, the miracle of the human body, the miracle of how he runs the world. Whether we understand it or not, it doesn't really matter. What goes on in the world. I'm saying according to nature. And how God puts, DNA in seeds, and they make apple trees and orange trees and this and that. Miraculous. No question. Right? No question. So, doesn't that show love? Shows love. That aspect of love is respect. As we said before, it's going to be a question of what level of fear. If it's fear of God's awesomeness and what he does and how he runs the world, that's all that is definitely a high level of respect. If it's only fear because you're afraid you're going to fry in hell forever, that's not necessarily respect. That means you're just doing it because you have no choice. You don't want to get punished. It's a much lower level. I would say it's a much lower level. Now, is that an aspect of love? Small aspect. Right? That level of fear, i.e., the fear based on, I have to keep what I have to keep because I don't want to get punished. It's very hard to say, that's going to lead to love, or that's what love is. Maybe a small aspect of it. But I wouldn't say it's a major aspect of love. But if a person, enjoys what God brings to the world and what we have to do, and that's going to show his awesomeness in the world, yeah, that's a different level. A much different level. That's what I would say on that. Somebody asks, people have different customs regarding tzitzis and talis and blessings. So the question is, do I hold every man putting on a talis every morning, saying the talis prayers are only talis kata? I don't know. I don't know why there are necessarily so many customs. Custom seems to be, if you're married, or let's say better, most people that are not married don't wear a talis, don't wear a prayer shawl. Don't wear a prayer shawl until they're married. So if that would be the case, they don't wear it, that's very easy. So then you make the prayer over regular sitzes. We call it talis katan, right? Small sitzes means it's not a talis, right? So fine. Now, what if there's a custom where people wear a talis if they're not married? Usually it's when they're married, but well, all right. So we'll make it easy on the other end. If they're married, the blessing over the talis covers the blessing over the other sitzes. So you don't need to make a separate blessing. Now, what about a middle case? Middle case is, what if they're not married, but they do wear a talis? So I think the halacha is, that even so, talis, whoever's going to wear the talis will cover sitzes. Right? If someone's wearing a big talis, you're not making the blessing over sitzes to cover the talis. The question would be, do I make two blessings? That's the question. Do I make the blessing over the big sitzes and the small sitzes or not? So in most cases, I say no. You make the blessing over big sitzes, covers the small one. Definitely covers the smaller one. But to say I'm going to make only the smaller one, that's going to cover the big talis, right? I don't know anyone who holds such a thing, right? It's either you're going to make one blessing or two, right? Either person who doesn't wear a talis, you're going to make a blessing over the talis katan, right over the sitzes. If a person does wear a talis, they'll make the blessing over the big talis, and that'll exempt the smaller talis. That's our answer for that. Everyone points out, love, back to this idea of love over here, extends beyond just feeling. Why is service? Yeah, service, interesting. Service of God, or let's say better, what's called avodas shebelev. What is service of the heart? Service of the heart is prayer. That's what service of the heart is. Now, the question here is, love requires service. Yeah, a person could say they love X, Y, or Z and put no effort in, and put no work in, and not do anything. Okay? They can have a desire. It can be a genuine desire. Right? It doesn't mean a person did anything. That's for sure not. A person can have love in their heart. Okay? So what? You have love in your heart. What does that do? It may not lead you to do anything. You just have that love in your heart. The question is, it requires something, yeah. You have to do something. Not enough just to have in your heart. You have to do something over here. Right? It's got to be beyond. I would agree. It's got to go beyond. It's got to go beyond this feeling. It's true. That is definitely true. Because without it, it's just a feeling. Now, someone could say it's a very strong feeling, okay? But things that we feel a lot of times doesn't mean anything. It's all about action. Normally we say words of my heart don't mean anything. Certain things they do, but a lot of things they don't. So what a person thinks in their heart, okay, could be good, could be bad. But a lot of times it's going to be irrelevant. Why? You're not doing anything with it. If it's negative thoughts, different issue. Forbidden thoughts, different issue. But see, we have to control the mind. We have to work on that. It's not so easy. Right? But it's got to be followed by something else. It cannot be followed just by this idea of love. Right? You know, the feeling itself, worth something. Not gonna say it's not worth anything. Right? Definitely worth something. Worth going in the right direction. But in the end, it's got to be followed up with something. Can't be just, just these thoughts or whatever that go nowhere. Again, positive thoughts are good. Negative thoughts are bad. But it also has to do with what I do with it. Not just it stays with me like that. Someone asks, is it normal for a JIT, a Jew in training, to react differently to things said to them and the way others speak to them? Yeah, that means you're more sensitive now. That means you have a higher awareness. When you have a higher awareness, things that really didn't necessarily bother you before now bother you. Or if they did bother you, they bother you more. Not a question of is this a bad reaction or not? Yeah, if a person's working on themselves and not speaking Lashon Hara, let's say, not speaking badly against others, and then they hear other people speaking Lashon Hara, that has an effect. 100% has an effect. Does it change the way we think? 100%. Now, it could be things that may not have bothered us. Now they bother us. Or, they bothered us before, now it's worse. So it definitely is common because now you have a different awareness. Right? Once a person realizes certain things are, let's say, forbidden, and you see someone doing it, even if you did it, or, do it every so often. But now you realize you're not allowed to. And then you hear someone do it or say it, how's the person look at it? Like, oh, I can't believe someone's saying that. Talk about cursing. A lot of people curse. Let's say a person starts working on not cursing. Let's just say for half an hour a day. They're going to work on not cursing. Okay. Even if they've been working on that a short amount of time, what are they saying? I want to have a higher sensitivity. And then they hear someone curse. Like, ew, I can't believe a person talks like that. How can someone say that? Right. But what would be the obvious, snappy answer back? You're no different. You did it before. You cursed yesterday. What, you think it's so great? Why do you think it's so great? You did the same thing. But what's the difference? Maybe true. The difference is you're working on yourself not to do that. Other people say you don't like it, close your ears. There'll be a lot of insensitivity. So when you're more sensitive about certain things, and now people are being insensitive, or they don't care. Does that make sense? Right? A lot of times, I would definitely agree that it's probably a waste of time, total waste of time to even answer certain people. What are you going to answer them for? You're just going to get aggravated. Right? If you tell me someone's willing to listen, they are somewhat open-minded. You want to have a discussion, it's one thing. But if you know they're just going to slap it back at you or make condescending comment and you know where it's going to go, then most likely it's a waste of time. Right? But sometimes the person just gets fed up You hear so many quacky things. People say whatever. It's hard to sit back and be quiet. Especially if you're like me and you got a big mouth. It's very hard not to say anything. People deserve to be slapped upside the head, not physically. They deserve to be told off if they're out of line. Problem is, you'll make enemies. Not only that, they're probably not going to listen anyway. So it depends what it is. There are times you do have to say something. But you're right, a lot of times it's better ignore it. Nothing's going to come out of it anyway. There's no point. Right, in many cases. So, a person can feel, they want to say something. But could be they should. On the other hand, even if you have the greatest answer, it's going to put them in their place in a quick way. Probably still a waste of time. Right? But yeah, definitely better to ignore. If possible. There's no point. There's no point. You're going to get the other person aggravated, get yourself aggravated. No point. Someone asked also if you don't have tefillin, right? Non-Jew shouldn't be wrapping tefillin until after conversion. They have to know how to do it, right? Before conversion. But they shouldn't be putting it on before conversion. So those blessings you don't say. Obviously if you're not putting on tefillin, you don't say those blessings. So someone asked, what about a balance? Is there a balance of love and respect? Yeah. Love is unconditional, just like a parent to a child. That love of God will be unconditional. Again, what's the problem? The problem is that we get beaten down in life. So when you get beaten down in life, the issue is, how am I gonna, continue to pray, continue this, continue that, and I'm just getting tossed around. Right? You'd be frustrated. Before a person came to the realization of Torah and mitzvahs, life was a lot easier. A lot easier what they could do, what they could say, what they could eat. Right? Much easier in many, many ways. Now they go against the tide. They go against the grain. Then people start saying things, this, that, whatever. Much harder. Then a person starts having trouble with health, or parnas, livelihood, or other things. They say, wow, what a covenant. I give up my life for God. Family doesn't want any party in them. Could be family you're very close with. No, they just toss you out. And other things could go down like a ton of bricks. They say, God, what a covenant. What an unbelievable covenant. So what Abraham went through, he didn't have it easy. And it made him who he was, all the trials. But we have to realize, whatever God throws at our way, we have to do anyway. We have to keep what he says. In no way, shape, or form does it mean life is going to go the way I think and the way I want. Doesn't mean that. They're going to say, but doesn't God take care of us? He does. But at the end of the month, the person short of money say, God, I need help over here. Before I was doing very well. Now, you're squeaking by. So what does that show? Now it's going to be higher awareness. He's the one in charge. Doesn't mean I can't pray for him to help me. But that love is unconditional. And it's a lot harder in certain ways when we have a lot of difficulty. It makes it a lot more difficult. And it makes sense in a certain way. It makes sense because the person has unrealistic expectations. And those unrealistic expectations are, God, you owe me. Look what I'm doing. 90% of the world, 95% of the world or more, they don't care about you. They curse at you. They don't follow what you say. And I'm doing more than most people. Well, let's say that's true. And I'm working hard. And I'm, trying to fight the evil inclination. Right? What's going to be the next question? Right? Working hard to fight that. And trying to go in the right path. Why in the world should it be so hard? So we dealt with this on Tuesday. Because when a person has a higher realization, the stakes are different. When you're closer to the king, then my actions really matter. And if I mess up even relatively small amount, even if, depending on the source of my soul, etc., there can be tremendous payback, even for something minor. You can say, but it's not fair. Other people seem to have it easy. Okay, that's the whole thing about suffering. Why evil people seem to have it easy? Which gets to the question, somebody asks, what are the most common ways the Yetzer Hara tends to affect your AITs? Jews in training or new converts to Bali Tshuva, returnees to Judaism. There aren't really things that bother natural-born Jews. Not a question of what bothers natural-born Jews or not. People who don't live with God in their life and how God runs the world, any little thing bothers them. Some people. If the light bulb goes out, fix it. You gotta fix it now. It's like the world's ending. Light bulb went out. Okay, get to it. There's some people like that. They go nuts, every little thing. And when they have a setback, they're thrown in a tizzy. You're going to say, wow, aren't Orthodox Jews also? The whole difference. The whole major difference. Major difference is how a person lives with God, how a person doesn't. If you have God in your life, you have a setback. Whatever the setback is. What are we going to attribute it to? Our own action. We're going to say we got to be better. We have to repent. We have to work on different things. If a person looks at the world as being haphazard, right? Totally haphazard, and things happen for, stuff happens, so to speak. So then you're not going to be a very happy camper. Because you think basically everything is random. It's only if I do this or it's this or something happens. They don't know how to deal with anything. We have ways of dealing with things. I'm not saying it's easy, but we definitely have ways of dealing with it. I guarantee you, situation I've been thrust in over the last 17 years. If other people would have gone through, secular people gone through what I went through, they'd be screaming day in and day out. I don't think there's any question. Not to put myself on a pedestal. This isn't fair, and look at this, and look what this, a lot of different things people will be yelling and screaming about. They wouldn't say, okay, this is what God wanted. Gotta pick myself up, still have to serve him. They'd be rip-roaring mad, but he's cursing day in and day out. Cursing family, cursing this, cursing that. Because they don't have a Torah hashkaf. They don't have a Torah way of looking at things. So what do? They blame everyone else. Not only blame everything else, they're bitter. I can also be bitter. But if you understand God's one who runs the world, and he gives and he taketh away, okay. You got to deal with it. But if you don't have a proper Torah perspective, drive you nuts. Because you see people around you and they just don't care. Apathetic at the best. Right? Took me a while, to finally realize there are people that have bad genes. You know what bad genes means? Bad genes means they have no Torah outlook at all. So, okay, you're bad luck. Kind of like once I was running for the train in New York, put a token in, got jammed. Running 50 miles an hour, bam, went flying 30 feet. People walked over me. One person stopped, looked down, said, man, that looked like it hurt, kept walking. So over that odyssey, that's what it felt like. Oh, wow, empathy? Because people wouldn't know what the word means. It's kind of painful. But you know what? When someone, and I'm going to say it and not be politically correct, when some people are mentally retarded, you can't help that. Now, I don't care if they have 120 IQ. They're retarded. So what are you going to do? Somebody like that, and nothing to do. They deserve to be put in a straitjacket, and they're nuts. Totally nuts. And that's the way Torah looks at them. So now, I'm going to get upset because these people have a 25 IQ. For what? It's a lot easier to understand it in those terms. But if you don't have a Torah outlook and you look at what people may have said or done or whatever, I can understand people being a little bit upset, not getting over it. I know somebody went into business at a franchise. Franchise is doing well. Got advice to buy another franchise. Didn't do so well. Took down the first one. Went bankrupt. Person's still bitter. Didn't get good advice. Nobody was there for them. People were apathetic. I get it. But this person never dealt with it. Certainly not on a Torah level. This person put his stock in man. This person saying, where were you? No empathy, no nothing. I can understand a person being upset. Makes perfect sense. But these people are twits in my language. And they have a 25 IQ. And they wouldn't know empathy if someone spelled and stuck it up their nose. What are you going to get upset about? That's who they are. That's not going to change. But if you understand they don't have any Torah, no Torah background, and they're mentally challenged, I'll be more politically correct. And they start hitting you and saying things, what are you going to answer? Nothing to answer. You're not going to answer anything. Person's got 25 IQ. Doesn't know what they're doing. So that's how someone with a Torah background and a Torah outlook is going to deal with that. Someone who doesn't have a Torah outlook, they're going to be really mad. They're going to be really, really mad. And the only way to get over such a thing, the only possible way to get over such a thing, my opinion would be they're going to have to go through therapy, which they never did. But they'd have to go through therapy. And therapists have to tell them, maybe they just didn't have empathetic genes. Maybe they don't, know how to show emotion. You have to, forget about cutting them slack. You got to realize where they are coming from. You got to say, but it's shallow and it's wrong. And right, you get the anger out. And you may even be justified. They may even justify your anger. But what are they going to tell you? Now, I'm not a psychologist. I don't play one on TV. So you can take what I say with a grain of salt. But what most likely they're going to tell you, the anger that you have may be justified. May 150% be justified. But it's going to eat you alive and destroy you. That's what it's going to do. Right? So this person's bitter till this day. Bitter. He's got a right to be angry. Definitely has a right to be angry. That I'm not going to deny. 100%. No empathy. This, that, whatever. Has a perfect right to be angry. Except from a Torah perspective. From a Torah perspective, the outlook is someone who's not brought up in Torah mitzvahs in general. What in the world can you expect of them? You can expect them to be, show emotion when you need to have emotion be shown. Try and understand where you're coming from when they're never going to understand it. And they're just going to make fun and say things, whatever. I grew up hearing many times. I never understood it until I really got older. And the statement is, it's a bad statement, but I'll say it anyway. That, some people will say, expect nothing from the other person, whatever you get is a bonus. Now, that's a little bit depressing way to look at things. But what's the rationale behind? If I'm not emotionally involved, I can't be hurt. So if I don't expect anything and I get nothing, nothing lost. Psychologically, though, psychologists tell you not a good thing. Because all you do is put up a block to try and, block the hurt. That's all you do. You just push it. You're not dealing with it. You just push it away. Because you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to be vulnerable. So something like that, what does the person say? Okay, if I get nothing in response, then I lose anything. And if I get something beneficial, okay. Obviously, from a Torah perspective, it's not about what I can get out of someone else, right? That's obviously wrong. Right? I have to help someone else, even if it's my enemy, if I get nothing in response. That's the ultimate when someone dies. Someone dies, and they do what they call chesed shalemes. You act of loving kindness with a dead body. What do you get in return? Nothing. Person ain't going to pay you back. You're not doing it because you're in the will. Maybe there is no will. But you're not getting anything back. So, the Talmud says there's a concept that's really brought down in the Torah. You love your fellow person like yourself. And by a spouse, we say that a person should love his spouse more than themselves. Now that's the problem. Nobody loves themselves more than anyone else. Right? That's just the reality. But we don't speak about marriage. Speak about your friends and how you should treat other people. We're not doing things because we think we're getting something back. That's like, that's obviously ulterior motives. You're doing it to get something in return. And you're doing it because you love the other person. You want to help the other person at whatever level. So, what are common ways the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, hits Jews in training, Bali Tshuva, returning to Judaism? Health could be one. Livelihood could be another. Family, being accepted by a community, moving, a lot of things. I think probably one of the most important things that a person is affected by normally is family. Now, if a person has a good relationship with family, so them being religious is not going to be a big deal. But if a person had a connection to family, maybe in a very good connection to family, this is going to be a major test. Major test. And if someone's really big into family and you have issues with this, it's not going to be easy. Because all you want is to be part of the family, be accepted. Not that you're judging anyone else, etc. You want to be like everyone else, but you can't. Certain things you can't do. Certain things that are forbidden. And even if it's not forbidden, they look at you as being a little bit strange. More than a little bit strange. Now, some more, some less, I'm saying it does have to happen. I think family is probably the biggest issue. Then I would say probably parnasa, livelihood, health. Those are probably the major ones. Community issues I would put up there. how a person's going to make it inside the community, and there are a lot of things. I think those are the main ones, but these are major ones. Because again, someone changes their life, changes religions or becomes more religious as a Jew, and they want acceptance. They want to be part of the family, do whatever they can do. Obviously not turning the Torah into a pretzel, right? But doing what they can do, what possibly they can do. That's going to be a major test. And I think for a lot of people, I don't know what the statistics are, but I think for a lot of people, this is going to be an issue. This is definitely going to be an issue. Now, that doesn't mean family goes by the wayside. I'm not going to say that. But I think that relationship gets strained. Because the reality is, if you were to change religions as a Jew, they probably have more respect in certain ways. Because being an Orthodox Jew means what they're doing is wrong. They don't want to hear that. So as much as they may claim they're so much more open-minded than you, and they're so open and all this and all that, the reality is not true. It's not true. So I think that would be the hardest thing. Somebody asks, you got the opportunity to study Torah, or you have the opportunity to apply Torah and do a mitzvah, act of loving kindness. Doing one, you miss out on the other. Depends what it is. If it's something, let's say it's burying somebody. Let's say there's no one around to bury this person. What we call a mace mitzvah. No one to bury them. And you're there, you have to do it. Even if you're learning Torah, it doesn't matter. You have to stop. There's a question that Talmud asks. Learning Torah here in the Megillah, here in the Book of Esther. What takes priority? Achnasas Kala, seeing a bride and a groom. I had to stop learning for that. Chesed, acts of love and kindness can also be part of the Yetzer Hara. Because you can think, well, no one else can do this except for me. Unless that is really the case. If a person has fixed times to learn and something happens, it is part of the evil inclinations. Oh, no, you got to stop. You got to go do it. Right? There are very few cases that would be the case. Now, if you're telling me you weren't learning, or you had the opportunity to learn or do this chesed. Now, if that's your first learning of the day, you may not learn the rest of the day, then you should learn. That comes first. If you already learned, you're finishing up or whatever, could be, the chesed comes first. But you have to remember, it's nothing more important than learning Torah. This could be way of the evil inclination. Right? Even if a person's learning, what can the evil inclination come and do? And say, okay, in the middle, you sort of get off topic, and then you start talking about, politics, terrorism, different things. Even though you're learning, that's very bad. Right? That's called evil inclination in the study. Huh? But if a person has an opportunity to learn, you should learn first. You should definitely learn first and do an act of loving kindness. Learning takes priority over anything. Unless it doesn't. There are certain things that won't take priority over. But most things it will. Most things it will. So therefore, you should learn. If you can do both, great. If you can only do one, then Torah comes first. Someone here points out, and they got the same exact problem I do. And that is, and I'm not saying anything about this person or myself. It's just a common thing I have an issue with. And that is difficult to mix with family because I find it hard to keep my mouth shut. Join the club. And I was younger. I opened my mouth a heck of a lot more. Didn't help. Now I'm much more seasoned. And this and that. It's still hard. I'm not going to say it's not hard. Over the years, I learned how to pick my issues. And people say, oh, you've mellowed a little bit. No, I haven't mellowed. It's just not worth it. Open my mouth. So I'm around a certain family. Unless I feel I have an absolute obligation to say something, I will. But 99% of the time, not worth it. Even if I know I'm right, just let it go. You have to let it go. It's not worth it. It's going to cause problems. Certain things, over the last few years, few things here and there brought up. That was it. I have to understand, for me, that's, A, where there's no respect, and B, it doesn't matter what I say, and you have all the answers or a lot of the answers, and you can't say anything. It's worth it not to say anything. It's just worth it. You're not going to get anywhere. Not going to get anywhere. I would agree. It is a hard thing. And you have to hear people's stupidity. That's part of what, it's part of the process here. And I can't even tell you how many times either I just swallowed what I was going to say. I walked out of the room, came back, very, very hard. In my case, you think you got it hard, multiply it by infinity. I'm ready to pounce any little thing. I'm just ready to pounce. Can't. I mean, not healthy to do that anyway, but it's frustrating. Can't even tell you how frustrating it is. I'll tell you what's more frustrating. And that is, they can say something idiotic, off the wall, and you can't criticize it. But something about Judaism, say, oh, this is like this and this is like that. And you can't answer because you have to be respectful. They don't have to be respectful of you. You have to be respectful of them. That's I think, harder. That I find the hardest. I think every time I keep my mouth shut, I don't even have bad thoughts about it. Messiah could be right around the corner. It's just could be that's what I'm doing here in this world. Because it's extremely hard. Extremely hard. And then people say what they want. They don't respect what you have to say, but you have to respect them. That is almost impossible. Almost impossible. And then you throw out a one-liner and say, we can agree to disagree. I didn't even get started. I didn't even get started yet. I'm just getting warmed up. That's it. It's over. It's over. Right? That is very hard. To me, that is very hard. But yeah, keeping your mouth shut. At some point, a person, just being around such people disgusts you. A person should be disgusted by them, by what they do, by what they say. I don't care if someone's going to say they created B'Tselem Elohim. You're right. They're creating God's image. But they blaspheme, they say things, they don't care. They just don't care. But see, no, you have to be respectful. And we should to a certain extent. Unless it's like outright heresy. Unless it's outright heresy. Then you have an obligation to say something. And even what they say is wrong or is disparaging, you gotta be careful because every little thing, I can tell you, I can take a conversation and pick out 3 things I could have said something. Potentially. Not gonna matter. Totally not gonna matter. Keeping your mouth shut, yeah. That is definitely a hard one. It's the hardest part is where they don't respect you. Now, if they don't respect you or what you do, I'm not saying you tell them off, but at the same time, it's very hard. You just hear lunacy. I heard a number of things recently and I just laughed. Some of them. I don't laugh out loud. Laugh to myself. I'm like, you got to be out of your cotton picking head. Like, this is just lunacy. If I would have said it, they probably would have agreed. whatever. It's not going to go anywhere. But see, to take it apart, like, oh, well, that's, other people have different opinions. See, the whole thing is you're not going to get anywhere with this. Because even if they listen, I got proof, I got this, they don't care. They're not holding anywhere. But it's like you have your hands tied behind your back. They can say whatever they want, hit you, smack you, this, that, and you can't say anything. I can't even tell you. You can probably see from my expression. I can't even tell you how frustrating that is. Extremely frustrating. Different people have different tests. That's a hard one. But I learned over the years how to give snappy answers to, snappy type questions. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I won't. But sometimes I'll slip something in and that's it. Boom. Maybe I shouldn't even do that. But you got to be very careful also. You can't just tell someone off even though they deserve it. You have to be respectful, because you start going off on them and say, what are you getting so upset about? And we meant this and that. You got to be careful. They'll take it out of context, and B, like, I never reacted when you said such a thing. I never did this when you. That's why, when someone gives over something and they're passionate, they say, what are you yelling about? I get that a lot. Not a question of yelling, it's about passion that a lot of people don't have. But it is definitely hard. There's a lot, someone points out, there's a lot we all have to learn. That's true. We have to learn to be respectful also, unless it's like absolute heresy. But I will say, and a number of people have given me this advice, over the years, the best thing to do is just keep your mouth shut. That's what I've done. I wouldn't say 100% of the time, but close. When I hit 100%, you have a nice piece of cake, nice chocolate bar, wolf it down. It's a hard thing. It is not an easy thing. Especially where you don't get any respect at all. You can say, what? We deserve respect? We deserve to be talked to in a nice way. Not made fun of. I know certain people ask certain questions. I have about 10 seconds, not even, to give an answer. Not even. I'll give a quick answer and just go on to something else. Why? Because I know they don't care about the answer. Like, oh, that's interesting. They move on. They just ask it to ask. It's like, oh, I heard like this. But I know they don't care about the answer, so what do you do? So if you have an answer, give an answer, but you got to make it very quick. More than 10 seconds, they won't give you the time. It's also frustrating. Someone, I mentioned something to someone a while ago about life after death. They're like, well, can you give me that answer in 30 seconds? I was like, well, you're a finance major. Could you tell me how to invest in, get hedge funds to invest in money in 5 seconds? Like, kind of obnoxious. So my answer was, I'll send you a link to a video. You want to watch it? Fine. I'll send you a link. That was my answer. Did they watch it? No, I did. I knew they weren't going to listen. You have to, that's the whole art over here. You have to know, if they're asking a question or it's just an agenda. If it's an agenda, I don't have to answer the question. If they have a question, if they, I got a great book, you want to read it? Then you see how serious the question is. If you can get out a quick answer, within 10 seconds, they give you 15 seconds. Okay. But you have to know where the question's coming from. And if they're not interested in the answer, just throw anything out. It's not going to matter. They're probably going to make fun of it anyway. I can't, I can't, I can't, I'll give an example. Someone said to me in a kosher restaurant, he said, what's the whole thing about keeping kosher anyway? We don't have a problem with trichinosis. Like before they didn't really have real, cooking and, tapeworms and this and that. So I said, well, you're eating a bagel. So I said, eating a bagel has nothing to do with trichinosis, does it? And they're like, oh, whatever, pass the salt. That was it. Wasn't even a conversation. They just threw it out there. I gave an answer. That was it. They weren't interested in a long answer. They weren't interested in a short answer. You have to know where it's coming from. Right? I would say, if they're going to ask a question and they're not interested, if it's a question, then you give them some sort of answer if you have one. If it's not a question, it's just an agenda, I don't have to answer. Right? That's same thing the Haggadah by the evil son. Ask a similar question to the wise son, except you blunt his teeth. Why don't you give him an answer? He's not interested in an answer. I asked the question, you're right, but he's got an agenda. Right? A lot of people I deal with, secular Jews, they have an agenda. So what am I going to answer an agenda? No point. They're not asking a question. Oh, they ask a question. That's a different issue. But then you have to see if they really want an answer. Or they're just throwing it out there. Like some people say, where's God during the Holocaust? I got a great book. It's called Six Tales of the Holocaust. You want to read it? No. It's just a question I ask rabbis, make them fidget. Okay? So now you got an answer. It's a waste of time. So yeah, you have to strip away the question and see. Right? You can always throw the question back and say, did you mean to ask this? Or maybe you meant to ask that. Or something like that. But you strip it away, see exactly what the question is. Right? And then you have to know the person and see if they really want an answer. And I don't think most people want an answer. Some people will. Right? Some people will ask a question just to get an answer. And some people ask a question, they don't care what the answer is. No matter what you say, it's not going to matter. Or something like that, even if they ask a question, it's a waste of time. There are certain people I know, I'm going to ask, they'll ask certain things. I'll answer as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible. And then it goes on another topic. Oh, okay. That's it. Yeah, it's frustrating, but you gotta, as we always say, you gotta deal with the hand God's given you. And the hand may not be so good the way we look at it. But okay. People are who they are. They don't know very much and they don't care. Right? But what's frustrating, and more than frustrating, is the fact that they don't show respect. Now, it doesn't mean they have to do what you do, but they don't show respect. And then they make fun, and then you get upset, and you say, why are you getting upset? And they can always say, oh, I was just kidding. Oh, what, you can't take a joke? Right? So, person has to know who they should speak to. And if having these conversations are worthwhile, or having these family relationships are worthwhile. Mentioned many times, what do people say? Blood is thicker than water. Okay? So what? I mean, I have to, I have the relationship with people that all they're going to do is make fun and say things and whatever. I can watch there, I don't have my head grow. I could use another, hole in my head, some people would say. Okay? I don't need that. We all have enough aggravation in life. Yeah, I need any more, more dramatics. Well, but I would say that's the recipe for success over here. Is that when you look at what someone says and they don't know anything, even if they make, let's say, an obnoxious comment, if they have a 25 IQ and they're mentally challenged, they're not going to take what they say seriously at all. I answered somebody once. Someone's got an MBA. Probably a lot smarter than me. I cut the person down in 3 seconds. That was it. Didn't say anything after that. Put them in a place. You can't be walked on and stomped on. And just made fun of. And they'll say, well, family's family. We don't have anything else to do with our lives. They say the more they know, the stupider they are. Or the bigger they are, the harder they fall. I've seen a lot of quote unquote intelligent people, Judaism wise, the joke. Talk a big game, I don't know anything. They'll talk like you don't know anything. Yeah, it is frustrating. 100% it is frustrating. But I can only tell you, when you don't say anything, even if you're boiling mad, the merit you get is unbelievable. The reward you're going to get for not saying anything, is unbelievable. I keep saying that to myself. The hard thing, but not just that I'm doing that for reward. I understand if I say something and how I'm going to say it, it's just, A, it's not going to come out right. B, be a whole discussion that's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to do anything. So, you really have to pick your issues. That's what I've learned over the years. Again, sometimes, I did have to say something. And there were times I said something where I probably didn't have to say anything. I probably shouldn't have said anything. But the evil inclination got the best of me. I was like, are you serious? This, keeping quiet, is in these situations not so easy. Like I always say, my own family, intermarriage all over the place. Right? Generations, people wiped off the face of the map spiritually. So I can help others, I can't help myself. That's normally the way it is. A person can help others in other things, and certain things, they just can't do anything. Okay, so that's part of the trial. Is God going to have complaints against me because I didn't reach out to them or whatever? I hope not. But he can't bring someone to drink. Can't bring the horse to drink. Anybody knows they want information, who to go to. They don't. We can't worry about it. If they want the right information, as the Talmud says, you want to go in the right direction, God will help you. If you don't, God's not going to stop you. So, person will make that decision. And if people go in the wrong direction, maybe they'll say later, hey, you should have done this, should have done that. I don't know if God's going to say the same thing. So if you would have shown me the information, you would have made fun. You would have scoffed. You would have said, stop spamming me. Probably. And they may agree. So how far does the person have to go? I don't know. I don't think they have to go that far. They can put out feelers, different things. Not much you can do. In that, God's not going to have any claims against you. They don't want to listen. All they want to do is make fun and other things. So why is that your responsibility? Why your responsibility? Because most people and families know they want to have questions on this, they know where to go. If they want. They want to. And if nobody wants to, they make the bed they lie in. It's their choice. I'm after them, and they're not going to listen, and they're going to make fun, and this. I don't have an obligation. Who says I have an obligation? All the more so, you stay away from them. Just they're a bad influence on what they say and what they do. So I have to try and bring them closer when they're not interested, and they're going to say all kinds of negative things. You can say, but how do you know? Maybe they really will listen. I don't know. I don't believe that. Some people say you still have to try. Could be. I don't think that's the case. Yeah. Any other questions? Someone asked in India. There's no based in India. I don't think there will be a based in India. They don't do conversions in that part of the world. So you're going to have to move. Right? I would say, closer probably be, I don't know, that part of the world, Australia, probably closer than anywhere else. But I provide synagogues in New York or Toronto, authorized Rabbinical Court of Israel. Yeah, I can do that. There's a whole list. Maybe I'll put it up. I've seen it before. There's a whole list of rabbinical courts that are recognized by Israel. Now, I'm just going to say one thing on that. There are rabbinical courts that are very good, not recognized by the chief rabbinate, which just means a lot of politics. Doesn't mean they're not good. And there are other rabbinical courts, I would say, not so good, that are recognized. So even if they're on the list, hopefully a lot of the rabbinical courts are good. But just because they are or not accepted by chief rabbinate of Israel does not mean they're not good. That's what I would say on that. Yeah. Any other questions? Someone says, personally, better have rabbi straightforward, doesn't back off, deal with controversial issues, right? Some people don't like that. Some people like, rabbis that are more touchy-feely. They want to hear what they want to hear. They want to be entertained. Well, it's not going to help them. My rabbi once said, if you're a rabbi of a synagogue and the congregants are not trying to drive you out, then you're not doing your job right. You don't say what they necessarily want to hear. They got to hear the truth. And unfortunately, sometimes, or a lot of times, people don't want to hear it. They just don't want to hear it. Torah is what it is. It says what it says. Can't turn it into a pretzel. Yeah, any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop there. Just every Tuesday and Thursday, usually 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RabbiChaimCoffman @gmail.com. Which never a good beginning of the day, end of the day, depending on where you are, or almost end of the day. And everyone